When there's an injustice against you or someone you love or someone you believe in, stand up. Don't sit down on them, if they need you.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet's Pop Culture Justice. I am Andy Signor, and I'm back in studio live, feeling slightly better, but still a bit under the weather. So I'm very glad to have a guest for the beginning portion of this show. Look who's back, Daniel himself, the Black Belt Barrister. How you doing, sir?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for again.
Well, you're not very well, are you? But you're fighting.
I'm okay. I'm okay that you're here to help me through this show, and Steph will be here and others. But thank you for helping me as I finally get over this little flu coming back from my holiday with my family. And thanks for being here last week on Royal Guest Week. We had such a blast, and I know the fans had a blast seeing me over on your new channel, Black Belt Secrets. Ooh. Where the barrister actually starts sharing some opinions. Something, you know, so you can check out Black Belt Barrister as well as Black Belt Secrets over there. And you can find him over on Twitter at dshenschmith there on Twitter as well. But yeah, great conversation. I saw you did a video you shared with me, and I watched. Yeah. We were looking at this story of Harry getting seemingly fired. We're going to discuss what this is. And you did a video this morning, guys. If you want to check out his take, go check it out over on Secrets. You can watch his, was Harry booted from his own company? That's what we're going to talk about, because since you've done that, and I didn't get to post mine earlier, I thought let's do it on a live. Travalyst, this company in question, has since responded, and I want to get your thoughts, your opinions, if you will, the Black Belt Secrets here, as we break down this latest information coming in. So for those of you unaware of what we're even talking about, first off, it's a slow news day. Sorry, it is. Trying to get my Royal stuff over on the Royal channel, but when there's no other news, yeah, we're going to dip into more Royal coverage. And this is a story that's been out there talking about this idea that Travalyst, which is a like eco-sustainable company, nonprofit that he's done, trying to get big companies to make sure that travel is more sustainable. It's very odd given that Harry himself flies a private jet around. Daniel, am I right? Like, this seems like the most hypocritical foundation a guy could find.
I mean, let's face it. They criticize anyone in the public eye for. I mean, I'm not defending it necessarily, but they criticize anyone in the public eye who's using private jets and all this sort of stuff. But I mean, even Rishi Sunak just recently, our Prime Minister just said that it's the most efficient use of his time to jump on a jet and get somewhere. I get that, but at the same time, if you're going to set up a company for sustainable travel, you can expect to be criticized for using a private jet twice in the same week. So that's what the headlines jump all over. But you're right, this Travalyst, I mean, it's an excellent venture. It's a huge coalition between companies set up not-for-profit sustainable travel organization for all sorts of technology companies globally to set up, come together, form this sustainable travel, because like it or not, this is something that everybody should be looking into. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they did respond, and they said, well, he's very much still keeping the same role that he was before. But
let's go, because this was happening, right? They, just to rewind for those of you who aren't following, right? They did this major announcement. I guess it was back in May, where they announced a new board. Correct? Can you set up sort of what did they do originally back in May?
So 24th of May, they filed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more appointments, along with, or just after a month after the confirmation statement, appointments of new directors. So in other words, they've appointed a fresh board. So this was originally a pilot. So 2019, Harry flies over to Amsterdam and says, let's set all this up. Let's all come together and form this sort of coalition behind the company that is Travalyst Limited. And it was a pilot. So they were testing things out. They were seeing how it could run, what they could do with all of this. But then the announcement in May was the pilot is over. Here's the new board. We're excited for the future. This is what we can do. And I have no criticism of that whatsoever, just to make that absolutely clear. I hope that is clear from my previous video, but there's absolutely no criticism there. It's a fantastic idea and venture, and I hope it really does well. So they appointed a new board to take this forward for what they say is the new exciting expansion phase moving forward. But obviously, I say obvious, it's not so obvious because it took the media a while to pick up on it, but Harry's not on it. He's not on that board. He's not one of the members of the new board as it is. Despite being, and I have the original filing statement here, he was listed as a person of significant control. I'll explain all this in a minute, of 75% or more of the shareholding. Now, I need to break this down, what this means, because sometimes we as lawyers, we think that, or as doctors or any profession, we think certain things are obvious to everybody when in fact they're not. So with all respect, let's break things down a little bit. Companies have owners, i.e. shareholders, whether that's a private company or a public company. It's owned by the shareholders, or members as they're sometimes referred to. But the day-to-day operations are controlled and governed by directors. Now, in very small companies, i.e. 1 or 2 sort of director companies, or even 4 or 5 director companies, are usually owned and managed and run by the same people. So the shareholders and the directors are usually the same people. Not always, but very often the same people. So the typical setup, at least in England and Wales and the rest of the UK, typical setup is 1 or 2 directors that jointly own the company and are both directors of the company. So that's a sort of small family outfit type company. Where you get to slightly bigger companies, 10, 15 directors, you start to get into the remit where the directors, the people that make the day-to-day, the important decisions of running this company, such as financing, marketing, and so on and so forth, don't necessarily own the company. They might be brought in and employed. They are known as executive directors. A non-executive director, we'll come on to in a minute, might be termed as a shadow director, which is there's a subtle distinction as to what they do and whether they are a shadow director or not. And I'll come back to that in a minute, why it's important, and it relates to this Harry case. But a non-executive director might just be somebody that they go to for guidance, consultancy, direction, and what to do, but they don't actually have the say-so as to what happens in the company. But a director, an executive director, someone filed at Companies House. Companies House is just a register of companies, literally registers the company, the directors, the shareholding, and all that sort of stuff, and what the companies do. So if someone wants to know about a company, what it does, who owns it, who runs it, they go to Companies House. And they just trust, they take it on trust that it's filed properly. And if it's not, it can be challenged. So this new board is appointed in May, and Harry's not on it. So when the media picks this up, they say, the obvious question is, has he been booted from the company? Not as a shareholder, but as a director. Has he lost control? It's a bit like the movies portray when someone gets booted out of their own company. And it happens in real life, especially with big multinational companies. Directors, even founder directors, get kicked out or voted out of their own company. There's many, I won't go into, but many famous examples of that in history. And sometimes they come back. And many people know which companies I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention any particular names, but that happens. So then they respond and say, well, he's very much still involved and his role hasn't changed. Well, if that's the case, that means one of 2 things. It either means that what he was doing previously wasn't really running the company, and so his role hasn't changed, or he was previously involved in running the company. He's still doing that, although he's not on the new board, which means he could, in theory, be a shadow director. Now, a shadow director is set out in the Companies Act 2006, which is a huge piece of legislation that sets out how companies are run. It says that a shadow director is somebody that is effectively making the same decisions and can be held liable under the Act as would any other director. And now this is where we get into the serious areas, because a director of a company, certainly I'm speaking for England and Wales here, for if that wasn't obvious, but for England and Wales, directors have lots of duties to act when they're making decisions for a company. They have to act within powers. For one, they have to promote the success of a company. For another, which should be obvious, they've got to exercise independent judgment, which is not as obvious as it sounds. It means that regardless of their own interests, which is a separate thing, but regardless of influence or bias or anything else, they have to exercise independent judgment for running the company. They can't be swayed by any one thing or another. They have to act independently for that company. And so if there's a reason that they can't do that, they must step down and move aside. And it may be the case, I'm not saying this is the case for Harry, but it may be the case in a situation where if it were detrimental to a company, that you cannot act in the best interests or you cannot act independently, you may have to step away. So that might be a reason. Basic duty, you've got to exercise reasonable skill and care. So you can't be careless when you're running and making decisions for a company. And you've got to avoid conflicts of interest. So, if he were to set up a competitor, then obviously that competes with the interests of the company. You can't act in the best interest of both companies if they're competing with each other, unless, of course, they're working together and that's accepted as being the best for both companies. You can't do that. And all sorts of things like that. So the point here is, if he's not a director, but the latest announcement is that he's still maintaining the same role, well, is he a shadow director then? In which case, if he does breach any of those things, he could still be held liable for breach of the Companies Act, even though he's not officially listed as a director. I hope all that makes sense. There's a lot.
Yeah, no, you did. It helps a lot. Gets very into it. The quote itself, just so we have it here, is Prince Harry is the founder of Travalyst and remains an invaluable part of this organization. His role has not changed in any way, and he is regularly involved in strategic discussions and decisions alongside our boards and partners. And that's which is odd, because it is here. We're led by Prince Harry. If you go to the website on the About page, he is there, but I guess he was never really on the board. So that's just a question of, should he have been on the board? Is the bottom line, or do you, now you've gotten the nitty gritty out, your opinion, do you think they're slowly trying to dump him from the role, but clearly can't do it so obviously?
Well, that's certainly one inference that wouldn't be far removed. So if someone is making, the key for me on the other page is that his role hasn't changed. So either he wasn't making decisions before and he isn't now. The bit before that, he's the founder. Yes, of course, he's always the founder. Even if I sell my company, I'm still the founder of the company. I still founded the company.
I found Honest Trailers. Exactly. I can even though they don't want me to claim that found. I've
Absolutely. Done it. And it's I remember it for that. Put it that way. I will say that live and forever. So and so it says here he's the founder. Remains an invaluable part of the organization. Yeah, fine. That's obviously just another warm statement towards him. That doesn't really mean anything. Sentimentally it does, but not legally or not in any real sense. But that bit you've highlighted is the real bit. His role has not changed in any way. So it's a very explicit statement to say that whatever he was doing before, he's doing now. So either he wasn't doing much before and he's not doing much now, or he was making he was calling the shots before and he's calling the shots now. It's one or the other. We don't really know which without,
He's definitely doesn't seem to have the time to call the shots. I assume he's just a name in this place that they have attempted to keep, but now it does
That's
seem
what it seems to me.
They're trying to distance themselves, maybe dump them a bit. They announce, how do you make a press release like all this and not mention Prince Harry? That's really what this is about. Like, they put this out there in May, right? And it's like, in the next phase, Harry, even just say the prince is, you would think if this was such an integral part of him, right, in his organization, the people involved would want to have him there in that press release. It's very telling that his name is not there, no?
Well, let's take a really obvious example here. I sort of relaunched my channel, Black Belt Secrets, if you like, because it's older than Black Belt Barrister, but I relaunch it to say what's its true calling, its true purpose. I'm going to share the secrets, my opinions, what I really think. And one of the first videos, I was blessed to have you on there, Andy. What do? I put you on the thumbnail. I say, special guest. That's what you do. If you've got someone who
it did well. Wow, good. We worked.
It did. If you've got someone who is, backing a venture and they're a well-known name, hats off. That's what you do. So if they don't do that, the obvious inference is they don't want to be associated. And I like some people say in the comments that I'm Harry bashing and I just don't like him. That's not true. I neither like or dislike him because I don't know him. All I can do is comment on the behavior. I can comment on what happens. I can say, well, I wouldn't have done that, but the caveat is, I'm not in his position. I haven't been through what he's been through. I've had people online call me thin-skinned, and like, you don't know what I've been through. I've been through stuff that they don't know about, so they've no place to say that. But the quickest thing is to ignore it or to block it or whatever, right? But in this situation here, I don't know what he's been through. I don't like him or dislike him. I can only comment on what's happened. And my take on it is, if he's not in that press release as this, exciting new phase of growth, and they don't mention him, then clearly they don't want to mention him and they don't want to capitalize on their name. That tells you one of two things. Either, let's be the advocate here, because I know I'm coming to you with my black belt secrets hat on, but I'm still a barrister and I still think of things in this way. The advocate's view is either he hasn't got time for it, or they've just agreed that they're doing it on their own and they don't need him, or he hasn't got the time for it or whatever. Or what is equally likely is that there's been a lot of bad press, which there has, and even without people disliking him, the bad press is there. And so maybe they want to distance themselves from him.
Well, here's an article. Yeah, and I was just speaking of bad press, here's an article from December of last year where he was telling people in a Travalyst newsletter to fly less and boast at the same time, boasting about how many air miles he and Meghan has. Yeah. It's just like the dude's just so out of touch and tone deaf with his own eco-friendly travel ventures. I mean, come on. It's idiot. Meghan Markle released her wedding speech where she joked about their air miles. Prince Harry raised eyebrows after urging travelers to fly less, while Meghan's laughing about how much they travel. Just make up your mind, dude. You can't have it both ways. And then at the same time, obviously the private jets, we talked about that. It is what it is. Sometimes you need to when you're, I guess, at that level. But still, it's just odd to be promoting something and then not really practicing what you preach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the point. I mean, I do get, again, being the advocate, I do get that people in high places, it is the best use of their time to jump on a jet and get somewhere. I mean, I've traveled across Australia, once in a coach that took me nearly 20 hours. And then I thought it would have taken me 3 hours to fly. So, you compare the two, you make your choice. But at the same time, it may not be conducive to promoting an eco-friendly travel company. So, sustainable travel options. So maybe there's a combination of bad press, of different things. Maybe it's a fallout from Spare. Maybe it's a fallout from Netflix and the Oprah interview. Who knows?
Now that we have you in your opinions, do you believe he is a lightning rod for negative news? And do you think there is
I think so, at the moment, yes, I do. Because the thing is that he's sort of brought it on himself. If I had it to hand, I'd sort of ping it across to you to bring up on screen. But the quote is something along the lines of, I might as well do the crime, is what he said in his witness statement in one of the recent court cases. And in essence, what I mean is this. He said in his witness statement that the press was so quick to paint him as, the wrong or the rogue prince, and print everything about what he's done wrong, that in his witness statement, and I said this in one of my videos before I read his witness statement. I don't know if the timing, I think his witness statement obviously came first, but I hadn't read it at the point that I did the video. So I was right in what I predicted, and said that what I felt was that he was just saying, well, just have it all then. Here, just have everything that ever has happened and have it all at once, only I'll make money off it. Obviously he didn't say the money part in his witness statement, but he might as well have done, because that was obvious.
This is the quote. As a teenager in my early 20s, I ended up feeling, though, as I was playing up a lot of the headlines and stereotypes that they wanted to pin on me, mainly because I thought that if they are printing this rubbish about me, people were believing it, I may as well do the crime, so to speak.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so for that reason, he's fueling the fire. I mean, of all people, I mean, like, he will know how this works probably better than any of us. What happens when you say something and it ends up in the press? Because, I mean, again, to be the advocate, to be fair, he's had his whole life of it, and he's been through, horrendous family trauma, whether you can rightly blame the press for that or not, it was involved with the press, and so he's been through such family trauma, and so I think he's living this nightmare every day, and it's almost like you get what you focus on, and so he's focusing on that, and yeah, I think it is a lightning rod to negative headlines, because to some extent they will feed on it, because the news companies know that it will sell, it will sell ad space online, it will sell newspapers in print, and so they will jump on it. So anything like this, they will jump on.
Yeah, it does. I got to be honest. So to answer the question, yeah, I do think he's been dumped. And even though they've come forward, I've gotten used to this. I don't know about you, but it feels like they have enough of their team members put out things to try and squash these things, but never actually makes me believe. It just feels like damage control quotes more than anything else.
It almost makes it worse, because they get someone to come and almost, a source close to where I did a video with our Al Robertshaw. He was a media lawyer. He spent years working at the newspapers. So we got together and we started talking about this sort of thing as well. So there's a 45-minute chat about exactly this, how the news companies can print almost anything that they wish. Try and find the link for that later. But yeah, in essence, they can do that. And it almost makes it worse. So a source close to usually means the person. So as Al put it, a source close to the prime minister is usually the prime minister.
Right.
A source close to the cabinet is someone in the cabinet. And so here, a source close to Harry or Meghan is probably Harry or Meghan. And so when they come back and say, well, actually this happened, actually this is how, actually this is what, actually, and they come back and try to explain and almost cover up what really happened, it can make it worse. Because just like, I think of it like this, news online is almost like a live public courtroom. You say one thing that is slightly contradictory to something else, and I'm sure I've said stuff that's contradictory, and I would happily say, yeah, I've changed my mind, or yeah, I now think about that differently. It's how you deal with it that really matters. We saw that with Depp Heard. Like, Johnny Depp was quite happy to say, well, yeah, I accept that, but I'm not like that anymore. But if someone were to say, no, I've never done that, that's not me, and then they prove that it's you, well, suddenly you look, not
even
credible
worse
anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can't do that. But when they come back and try to explain what happened and it doesn't match up, it makes it worse. And then the media will jump all over that as well.
Sounds like we're in agreement on this one. I think it's damage control. I think he is slowly being dumped from his own what's it called? I'm losing my train of thought.
Travalyst.
Nonprofit company.
Yeah.
And so there it is. If you want to hear more secrets from the Black Belt Barrister, go onto his new channel, guys. In fact, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Go subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get him to 100K. You're getting close.
Thank you. Yes.
Head on over there. You can also head to Black Belt Barrister. You can follow him over on Twitter. Always a pleasure. Look forward to having you back, sir. I know you had a limited time. It's late by you. Appreciate it. We got lots more shows, so don't go anywhere. But that's just the portion that I'm trimming here for those of you watching on the replay.